Hey guys, so I've been hearing a lot about something popping up all over the internet right now, all about GameStop and this thing where the employees are lying to customers about new games and used games, and there's this new Circle of Life program, and a lot of people are asking, is this really true? And based on my prior experiences at GameStop, it probably is. So let me start this off by saying these are articles over on Kotaku, Polygon, they're everywhere right now. But keep in mind, their sources are anonymous. What this means is someone could just be simply lying about stuff they're doing at GameStop simply to create a stir or just put something out there that may not be true. But let me explain to you guys what's going on exactly, and let me tell you a little bit about what I experienced at GameStop that kind of lines up with this story, kind of shows that it might have some merit to it. So the first things first, this new program called Circle of Life started, according to a lot of people, late 2016 and has really ramped up in early 2017. And what that does is usually you're judged on two things at GameStop. Well, recently three things. It was the subscription card, the little card that you have to use that gives you 10% off and gets 10% more in your trades. You were judged on those, getting people to sign up specifically, and you were judged on taking pre-orders. So those were the two big things when I worked there. If you didn't have a certain percent, you were terrified that you would have your hours cut because the store manager would get in trouble for it. So what does he have to do? He has to find employees that will move these objects, which are the cards and the pre-orders. And we always had a certain percent we had to stick to. It was like 12% for pre-orders, and I remember it was like 6 or 7% for cards. And recently, they started doing trade-in numbers where the store would have to have a certain percentage of trade-ins as opposed to how many sales you're doing, because if your trade-ins are higher than your sales, you're consistently bringing in more stock, which at the time, GameStop definitely needed more used games because that's where their margins are. And even if you took in more stock, they had, I think it was RSBs or something like that, where I remember having to pack stuff up in boxes and ship them away if we had too much of one item, specifically if it was used. We would put it all in a big box. UPS would come by, pick it up, take it to another GameStop. Conversely, we would get boxes all the time that we would have to open up from other GameStops and then put out on the floor. Well, now it appears that they have added a fourth thing to judge these game advisors on, and that is used game sales. So what happens is they now have 4 categories that are equivalent to a full 100% if you can hit all of them, or 25% each, obviously. So if you hit your pre-orders for the month, if you hit your subscriptions for the month, if you hit your trade-ins quota for the month, and your used games for the month, no rewards, but you're safe. And that was the big thing, guys. At the time, game advisors don't get paid much. They don't get paid a lot of money. They get paid like a little over minimum wage, maybe. It's not much. I think at the time when I was working there, it was like $8 or $9 an hour. And that was, I think, fair at the time, considering that was a little more than minimum wage when I worked there. But I can't imagine any of these guys are making $10 an hour there. And they're getting tremendous amounts of stress put on them from the corporate office upstairs. So the idea here, specifically posted by these anonymous people, is that those 4 categories, like I said, you have used game sales, you have trade-ins, pre-orders, and subscription cards. Each one accounts for 25%. The goal is to hit 75%, so you can miss one of those. The easiest one to miss usually is your pre-orders, because that 12% is usually judged against your transactions. So the more transactions you do without pre-orders, that number will go down. Conversely, if you do like 4 pre-orders on one transaction, it will jump heavily. So this apparently has led to employees at GameStop lying to customers about there being a new game because they don't want to sell a new game. That will only hurt one of their categories, which is used game sales. So apparently they're lying to then sell the used game to a customer. Now, when I would ring up a new game, again, back when I worked there, we'd ring it up and it would come up with a little message on the box on the actual computer screen that says, hey, you have this game used. Check to see if the customer wants it used. At least ask them. And we'd say, hey, we have this used. It's $5 cheaper. Do you want it used? I'd say about half the time the customer goes, oh, yeah, cool. I'll grab the used game. Where is it over here? And that was fine. The other half the time, they would say, no, I'll just keep this new game. Okay, cool. Here you go. Thanks. It's $60, or I think it was $50 for some of the PS2 games. Great. But what's happening now is people are apparently going to GameStop, asking if they have a new game. The customer wants just the new game, and the employee is saying, no, sorry, we don't have a new game, when they do have new games. And this is just provided anonymously by GameStop sources, specifically employees, probably game advisors more than likely. And could this happen? Yeah, it could happen. I'm explaining to you why very quickly. So again, when I worked there, guys, I told you that I was pressured heavily for a couple things, specifically the entire store. So what happened is we'd have like a district manager come by like once every 2 weeks or something, sometimes once a month. And he would just look around the store, usually give you nothing but bad feedback. He rarely said anything good to you. And he'd always do that thing where corporate, would always ask you those passive-aggressive questions like, oh, why do you have that stuff set up over there? Or, well, this is an interesting display you have here. Why is it in the middle of the floor? and things like that. They would never say, hey, this doesn't belong there, hey, move this. They never said anything like that. But they would always call people out on their bad numbers, specifically on conference calls every week. They would have a conference call. I sat in on quite a few of them actually as a game advisor because I knew the manager really well. He's a really cool guy, and I was curious what goes on in them. So we'd have usually myself, him, and then someone else there. This was usually the middle of the day, going into like 2 o'clock when a lot of the people were there because game advisors would usually come in the afternoon. The store manager or an assistant manager would open the store. So here we go. I'm sitting on the conference call. People are getting called out for their bad percentages. They're simply being told, hey, get them up. Didn't say like or else or anything like that, but you know that's kind of the tone. Hey, we need these up. Figure out a way to get them up. So what do? We start realizing we need to come up with tactics to increase our numbers. Like these percentages have to go up. So we figure out in the long run, through the help of another store, I'm not going to say which store, but another store led us on to this little trick where we could use trade-ins and used game sales in one transaction to essentially give away one of those subscription cards. So let me paint a picture very real quick. Let's say you come in, you trade in $100 worth of used games. So you have a $100 credit. You then go around, you pick out $100 worth of used games. So at this point you have 100 and 100 for 200 that would be affected by that subscription card. Because remember, it gives you 10% off your trades, 10% more, or 10% more in your trades, 10% off your used games. So here we go. At this point, I know in my mind as I'm ringing you up that you have a $20 credit if I just give you this card, which means the card is then free. So guess what? The subscription card is free. I don't even ask if you want it. I just say, hey, guess what? You got a free card today because of all the stuff you traded in. Where can we send the magazine? So yes, no questions were asked. That was it. They would usually say, oh, cool, let me sign up for this real quick. Took 2 minutes to sign up because I just put your information in real fast. Boom, done. Magazine will be there in a month. And again, it was just corporate doing it. Really, if you go into a GameStop and the person at the register is asking you for pre-orders, asking you for a subscription card, don't get mad at that person. Get mad at the sign above the door when you walk in because it's all corporate. You have a very wealthy CEO at the top that probably gets paid way too much money, and they have to figure out how to make the corporate office make sense in terms of cost, while the people at the bottom who are in the trenches doing a lot of the work are getting paid minimum wage. So yes, based on my experience, guys, I do think it is very possible that they are lying to customers because they are forced to. I don't think it's because the person at the bottom is malicious about it. I don't think they're like, oh, I'll get over on this guy. Yeah, because they're not getting anything from it. They're just trying to keep their job. And it really, guys, I'm not kidding when I say it is actually like that. It gets bad there. Like they really lean on you for those subscription cards, those pre-order numbers. And sometimes it's just not fun. If you work at GameStop and you don't have a good time there, it's probably because you don't get along with the people around you, because that's all there is, guys. Like if you're there and you're having a lot of fun with the people around you like I did, it's more interesting. It's more fun to go to work. But if you just hate the people you work with, that job will beat you down bad. And some people, man, that's what they have for income, so they have to figure it out. And that's what you do. Some people just don't care, and eventually they end up leaving GameStop because of it. They get told, hey, your numbers aren't good, we have to figure something out, and then they don't care, and eventually they're let go. And I'm not kidding, guys. People would get let go because of their numbers. Holiday hires would go over heavy scrutiny at the end of the holidays, and sometimes one would stay on. Most of the time, 3 or 4 would be let go. That's it for now, guys. Let me know what you think about this whole GameStop thing. Let me know, especially if you work at GameStop now. Listen, I don't expect you to come out and say anything like big time secrets or anything that's going on at your store particularly. Just let me know if they still lean on you for those, or if you're recently, if you've left GameStop recently and you kind of know what I'm talking about or understand what's going on there better. Definitely let me know. I'm seriously, I'm very curious, guys, to know what's going on there right now. Like I said, I worked there a long time ago, but this was all stuff that apparently is still relevant based on these Reddit posts and the posts that are shown on Kotaku. So let me know, guys. I will see you next time.